I've just been thrilled to get out here and vote as early as I possibly could.
Voting has started in a key swing state.
They were nice the first time around, and they made you believe, but my belief has faded.
Also today, the voices of voters in Florida, the candidates' direct appeals, and the battle for the Senate gets nasty. I'm Megan Lieberman, live in the New York Times newsroom. Today is the first day of early voting in Iowa, and many swing state voters are likely to cast their ballots even before the first debate. Democrats especially are trying to capitalize on the early voting period. National political correspondent Jeff Zeleny spoke this morning with some Des Moines voters mobilized by the Obama campaign.
Is it a hard sell to tell people to come vote on September 27th or every day between now and November 6th?
No, actually, people are anxious to get to the polls and vote, support the president, and they like the fact that we can do it early.
You've got people requesting ballots in January at caucuses. You've got them requesting them all throughout the year. So you're really seeing a lot more emphasis on early voting, and especially ballots by mail.
It seems like we've been waiting for this day for a long time, and I've just been thrilled to get out here and vote as early as I possibly could.
Do you think that the Romney supporters are out voting early as well, or are they more likely to show up on election day?
Well, I don't
and
see
does this
them.
give you a false sense of security, maybe?
Well, we're not taking anything for granted. I sure don't see any of them out here today.
I feel good that I was one of the first that believed in him. And here we are 4 years later. Iowans are still going to make the difference.
You know, that's the question everybody asks, are you better? We are better, and the economy is improving. A number of things are getting better, so I'm glad to be out here.
I'm joined now by Jim Rutenberg, our other national political correspondent, to talk more about early voting. So, Jim, about 30% of the population voted early, right, in 2008, and we think it could be maybe 40% nationally this time, but like up to 70% in key swing states?
Yeah, I don't know about you, but I'm so glad Election Day is finally here. No, it's
for 40 days.
And for some percentage of the country. But yeah, it could be 40 nationally, 70 in some states. So the campaign has started. I mean, the voting has started.
Right, so Mitt Romney really does not have 40 days to catch up is the point here.
Well, depending on the state, he doesn't. Now, you know, the Democrats and the Republicans have different approaches to early voting, and the Democrats have traditionally, in this era of early voting, kind of tended to put more emphasis on it.
Right, and we do see in Iowa, where Jeff is, this real advantage for Democrats in terms of enthusiasm for the early ballots. They had like something like a 5-to-1 advantage in terms of requests for early ballots. Mm-hmm. Is that something that we are seeing reflected in other swing states? Is that something we expect to see reflected in other swing states?
I would think so, but the Republicans are approaching this differently this year, and they think that it's going to be, they're going to show unexpected strength. What the Republicans are trying to do is get voters out who are kind of less enthusiastic but certain to vote for Romney. People who don't vote in every election. They think if they get those kind of voters out now, then they can concentrate on getting others out later. So they say they're going to have some surprises.
Yeah, and there is this sort of counter-argument here that, in general, people who are voting early are people who've made up their minds. That's not the undecided voter who votes 40 days out, right?
Yeah, no. They clearly, unless maybe someone just has nothing else to do, which is possible.
They got dragged along for the ride. But there is this perception that this is sort of favorable to the Obama campaign, maybe because of their ground game, maybe because it just is a thing that Democrats have emphasized more in the past?
Yeah, they've emphasized it. And for instance, you know, we saw 4 years ago that the Obama campaign, for instance, was great at, or had a lot of help from African-American churches, and on Sunday said, okay, after services, let's all go to the voting booths. So it's just played to his strengths more.
And we've seen Republicans trying to sort of challenge and maybe restrict access to early voting in some of these key states. Florida, Ohio, what's happening in those places?
So in Ohio, it seems it's settling down, but it seems like they're going to let all voters vote that weekend before, which is critical. But there are still some court challenges, and it still has to shake out. Ohio, the Secretary of State there, had been trying to block early voting in some districts, happened to be Democratic-leaning districts. He took a lot of heat, even had some focus from The Daily Show, so they've had a rough time.
Let's just talk about the state of the race a little bit. The Romney people have been, perhaps not surprisingly, sort of downplaying the polls. What are they sort of saying about them privately, and how much pressure are they putting on this first debate?
Well, the first debate, they are, surprisingly almost to me, is they are admitting that the first debate is critical. They're also admitting that they need to change this dynamic. So they have some arguments with some of the polls, some of the margins. I think both sides think the public polls are picking up greater margins. Now, we've talked about this internally and externally. Sometimes these polls will show a skew in terms of, for instance, some of the polls have had more Democrats, more self-identified Democrats than Republicans. But this is what people say at the time of when they're being polled, and it happens that when Republicans are up, more people identify as Republicans. When Democrats are up, more people identify as Democrats. So, there's a margins of error in these polls for reasons.
And do they really feel, the Romney campaign, that this first debate is a real opportunity for them to change the dynamic?
Yeah, I think it's their main opportunity to change the dynamic. Barring an external event, look, all kinds of things happen in campaigns.
Libya continues to bubble.
Libya is still tripping up the president and his team. They've been sort of fumbling around that. Lots of things can happen, but in terms of changing the things that they can control, the debate is really the key thing right now.
In terms of the president's people, they also, in their sort of own spin way, have been saying, we expect this to tighten, races always tighten, we don't think this is over yet. Are they confident privately, or do they still worry?
They still worry. I mean, I think that in a way, we've heard a lot in the last couple of days from Republicans, frankly, conspiracy theories that there's a plot to suppress the Republican vote by mainstream media polling organizations. But, in fact, I would be more Democrat. I would be more worried if I were a Democratic strategist, because their people, if they think this thing's over, they're not going to show up, because let's face it, campaigns get close. This is a close race. There's nothing to say it isn't yet. These polls are snapshots in time. So the Democrats should be just as worried.
Thanks, Jim.
Thanks.
A critical state for both campaigns is Florida, where a New York Times poll conducted this week showed the president opening up a sizable lead. We caught up with two of the poll's respondents who are on opposite sides of the race.
I was an electrician, and when construction dropped out, there's just not that much work. So we decided that it's better that I go back to school and, get retrained. My name's Clayton Ives. I live in Port Richey, Florida.
Beth Vaughn in Riverview, Florida. Back in the 70s, I helped, be a radical and fought for women's rights. To me, that's very important, not only for myself, but for my daughters-in-law and my granddaughters. I am a rape victim, and to have some man not go through this is just horrible. Fortunately, I did not get pregnant by the rape, but if I were, then I feel it would have been my choice either to keep or abort the baby.
Thank you.
I'm an American, and I hope that these guys are too. And they say, hey, let's bring our jobs home. Let's stop these free trade agreements and giving away all our money. I mean, I don't have $20 in my bank account. Yeah, I voted for Obama. I believed him. He just made it worse. So I think it's time to go.
I'm voting for President Obama. I feel that he has done a great job. I feel as though when he first came into office, it was much worse than what we as the American people were led to believe. And I think with 4 more years and with help from both sides, he can get accomplished great things.
It's not that I think he's like a greater guy than Barack Obama. I just think that he's been in business, and as being a businessman, I think that maybe he'll understand more of what business craves to get going again so we can get back to work.
I was a single mom for 11 years with 2 young children, and I think that he realizes, living paycheck to paycheck, whereas Mr. Romney, I just think he is a child of privilege and doesn't understand.
It's been downhill for a long time now. And I know it's not all Barack Obama's fault, but he's just putting off platitudes that really don't mean anything. They were nice the first time around, and they made you believe, but my belief has faded. I know that Mitt Romney's a politician too, so, out of 350 million people, these are the 2 best that we can get.
With less than 6 weeks until Election Day, both campaigns have new ads showing the candidate making a direct appeal to voters. President Obama will begin airing a 2-minute ad in 7 swing states starting tomorrow. Here's an excerpt.
If I could sit down with you in your living room or around the kitchen table, here's what I'd say. When I took office, we were losing nearly 800,000 jobs a month, and we're mired in a rut. Today, I believe that as a nation, we are moving forward again. Now, Governor Romney believes that with even bigger tax cuts for the wealthy and fewer regulations on Wall Street, all of us will prosper. In other words, he doubled down on the same trickle-down policies that led to the crisis in the first place.
Media reporter Jeremy Peters joins me now with a closer look. So, Jeremy, that sounded like a closing argument ad 40 days out.
Well, exactly. Well, all the more important because voting is beginning today, and
It is indeed.
will begin shortly in Ohio, and other really important battleground states. So what that ad is really about is standing out. I mean, think about that for a minute. 2 minutes. How often do you see a 2-minute television commercial? It just doesn't happen very often. And that stands out for another.
Obama likes long commercials, though. He liked them in the last campaign, too.
Yes, he did. Right, he did a 30-minute commercial. But this is a little different, and it'll be used sparingly because the campaign knows how powerful this is. I mean, there is no more powerful vehicle for the President of the United States to get his message across to voters than to speak directly to them.
We also see Mitt Romney releasing a straight-to-camera ad this week, so let's take a look at that.
More Americans are living in poverty than when President Obama took office, and 15 million more are on food stamps. President Obama and I both care about poor and middle-class families. The difference is, my policies will make things better for them. We shouldn't measure compassion by how many people are on welfare. We should measure compassion by how many people are able to get off welfare and get a good-paying job.
So, Jeremy, I think that was his first straight-to-camera ad. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. It seems like it was a pretty effective one. Why haven't they been doing that more?
Right. Well, again, it's something that they have to be careful about overdoing. Romney did this a little bit, but notably, it was kind of a little bit askew. He would be looking slightly to the left of the
direct
camera.
to the camera.
Right, or the camera would be behind him as he's driving a car.
And it was not the whole ad. It was like a little piece of the ad some of the time, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, remember when Mitt joked about Ann saying, we don't want to use Ann too much, so people might get tired of her?
Right.
Right, well, maybe the campaign feels the same way about Mitt.
But obviously they thought this 47% tape is something they just had to respond to in a pretty direct way, and he had to seem like he was earnestly speaking to voters on that.
Right. And it's a sign of how seriously they took their response to this. My guess would be the reason it took a week for this ad to come out is because they tested it, they focus grouped it. They wanted to be very careful about what Romney was saying because they knew just how important rebutting that would be.
Now, meanwhile, the Obama campaign is going to milk this 47% tape for all that it's worth. And we see another ad that's come out from them that's using the audio over all these pictures of like hardworking Americans and veterans. And are we going to see this between now and Election Day?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, this 47% tape just played right into the Obama campaign's message, which was Romney doesn't really care about you. He's in it for himself and his rich friends. And I mean, what better proof do they need than a videotape in which Mitt Romney is saying basically, half of the population, I'm not going to worry about.
Finally, you've noted we've talked a lot about how there are a lot of ads targeting women, but you've noticed a new way that they're going after women, particularly the Republicans.
Yeah, absolutely. Babies. It's the new thing for 2012. You're seeing babies all over. 3 major ads this week running in heavy rotation in swing states feature adorable little babies. And I mean, it's a number of things going on there. One, it stands out. It's not your usual political ad with the scary deep-voiced announcer.
Detergent ad or something.
Yeah, exactly. But you know, it's the sign of the gender gap that the Republicans feel that they need to close. They think that by making an argument about the exploding deficit to women by saying, look, this is going to really impact your kids is powerful and effective.
Thanks a lot, Jeremy.
Sure, thank you.
Turning now to the battle for the Senate. Polls show the control of the Senate's increasingly up for grabs. Deputy Washington Bureau Chief Carl Hulse joins me now to talk about developments in some of the key races.
Megan.
Hey, Carl.
How are you?
Happy
early voting day.
Happy early voting day. So let's talk about some of the sort of politically incorrect things that are going on in some of these Senate races. Scott Brown reluctantly finally sort of didn't quite apologize, but said he regretted that people on his staff had gone to
and that he would fire them if they did it again. Right?
Had gone to a rally tomahawk chopping and war whooping it up.
Right.
You know, it seems like Scott Brown's brand has been, I'm the likable guy, I'm the relatable guy.
Right.
How much does this hurt him?
Well, I think that it sort of backfired on them because in the debate, he raised this with the debate last week. They thought they'd been pretty successful in bringing this back into the dialogue in an acceptable way. And then he speaks at a rally, and you can hear his staff war whooping and doing the tomahawk chop caught on video. So, and yes, then he has to apologize. There was a tribal leader, Cherokee tribal leader, I believe, who called it, just flat out racism. So instead of getting this back and putting her on the defensive again, he's back on the defensive about it. And, not a good position to be.
In Virginia, we now have seen the return of the macaca moment from 2008.
I think we knew that was coming back, right?
We did. But it's interesting that
George Allen.
It's not the Kaine campaign raising it. It's an outside group, right?
Yes, correct. A labor-affiliated group. It's kind of a small ad buy. This goes back to the incident when he ran 6 years ago, when he suggested that an Indian American Democrat who was following him, he referred to him as macaca, was seen as a slur, caused a big blow up, and he lost a very close race. Some people thought this was it. This labor group is putting it in internet ads, and it's a very small buy, but of course, it's back in the injected into the race. We're talking about it, and that's really what they wanted to do. And he has to answer it again.
And then, of course, we have Todd Akin. Who could forget Todd Akin?
Right. This is really interesting there in Missouri. Todd Akin, the congressman who had the remarks on legitimate rape, illegitimate rape, decided not to leave. He never was going to pull out. A lot of pressure on him by the party to pull out. This week was his deadline. He didn't leave. So now some in the party are drifting back to him.
And how much support do you think we're going to see from Republicans for him, honestly?
Well, there's a conservative PAC that used to be affiliated with Jim DeMint that is going to give him some money. Jim DeMint, Rick Santorum have endorsed him. Probably the most interesting thing is, the National Republican Senatorial Committee, which swore they would never help Todd Akin, put out a statement yesterday saying, we obviously prefer Todd Akin to Claire McCaskill. We'd rather have a Republican than a Democrat. We're monitoring this race. That's the group headed by John Cornyn. Now, whether they end up giving money or buying ads there, I'm not really sure, because Todd Akin has run ads attacking John Cornyn and Mitch McConnell, the Republican leader in the Senate, for not helping him. So, to expect them to turn around and write him a check, I'm not sure they're going to do that. But if it's close at the end, they will. They want that seat.
Yeah, and
so
they kind of need that seat, right? I mean, they were very confident
Right.
about taking the Senate back maybe 6 months ago, and they're a lot less confident now. How is that
Right.
looking to you at these days?
Well, it's 23-10. That was the 23 Democratic seats up 10 Republican seats. Everyone thought they had a huge advantage. I mean, the Missouri seat, most people, held by Democrat Claire McCaskill, most people thought that was almost a sure win for the Republicans. Then Todd Akin happens along. It's not such a sure win. There's been a lot of developments in Senate races that make it look right now like the Democrats can hang on. I saw that there's a new poll in Indiana where Dick Lugar was defeated in the primary, where the Democrat was actually ahead. So that's another one that's gotten on the radar screen. I think the Democrats feel pretty good right now. Republicans are trying to put out a lot of fires in a lot of places.
Let's talk about a little other Democratic optimism we've heard. Nancy Pelosi, notably among the House leadership, has been talking about having a real shot about taking back the House. Do they have a real shot? Is that wishful thinking on her part? Does she believe that even?
I think she probably thinks it can happen. It is wishful. I mean, she wishes it would happen. She'd like to be back into become the speaker again. I think that right now the thinking in Washington is things are breaking in the Democratic direction right now. The national polls show it. There's movement towards the president in some of these swing states. That will work all the way down the ballot. It's helping the Senate candidates, frankly. And there is a chance that some of these Democrats are going to get a boost out of that. I think that it's still going to take a huge shift in the Democratic direction to bring them back to a majority. The problem for them is they need 25 seats, a net gain. Well, they've got some guys, they've got some retirements. They also have some people in more conservative districts who are going to lose. So it's really more like 30, 35 seats. That's a lot of seats for them to pick up this cycle. Not out of the question, but it's going to take a big movement toward the Democratic side.
Thanks a lot, Carl.
Thank you, Megan.
Before we go, take a look at this picture that Time magazine recently found in its archive. It's a young Mitt Romney who, while serving as a missionary in France in the late 60s, made a series of photos for his then-girlfriend, Ann Davies. The pair, of course, got married soon after he returned to the States in 1968. Anyway, that's all for today. Stay with us online for more on Campaign 2012. I'm Megan Lieberman. Thanks for watching.